Yeah, Midjourney's great. You can, with text, you can create jaw-dropping images and really push the limits of creativity. But can you actually grow your company with it? Can you grow your business, your department, your own career with just Midjourney? Well, we're going to talk about that today. If you're new here, welcome. My name's Jordan. I'm the host of Everyday AI. This is your daily live stream, podcast, and free daily newsletter, helping everyday people like you and me not just learn what's going on in the world of AI. There's a lot, but how we can all actually leverage it, right? Talking about Midjourney. How can we actually leverage that? We do it. Our guest today does it. So we're excited to talk about that. So, as a reminder, if you're joining us live, drop a question. What do you want to know about growing with Midjourney? If you're listening on the podcast, make sure check the show notes. There's actually going to be a link back to, I think, a LinkedIn thread where you can ask questions of our guest today, who is amazing, an amazing artist in Midjourney and more. So before we get to that, let's talk about what's actually going on in the world of AI news. A big one, very big one. Let's start here. Microsoft has announced an open sourced version of ChatGPT for enterprise. This, y'all, is a big deal. So it is called Microsoft Azure ChatGPT, and it allows enterprises to run ChatGPT within their network, right? So I'm going to have a dedicated episode to this later, but I'm letting all of you know this is a big deal because one of the biggest reasons why so many companies have kind of pushed off AI is for security, or they maybe don't understand how it works with their data. So having Microsoft release this, not OpenAI, as an enterprise version, pretty big news. So make sure to check out more on that in the newsletter. Next piece of news, the annual DEF CON actually featured man versus machine. So we had hackers versus chatbots. So we had some of the best human hackers in the world going head to head with chatbots from the big names, Meta, Google, OpenAI. So check out more about that in the newsletter today, as well as this one may not be big from the business standpoint, but if you use WhatsApp, you're going to start seeing this a lot. So WhatsApp, owned by Meta, started testing AI-generated stickers. All right, cool, fun, cute. But here's the thing. I think especially with all of the Meta/Facebook platforms, you're going to start to see a lot of generative AI start to pop up in these platforms. So small one, but probably something that a lot of people are going to notice. So that was just announced. WhatsApp rolling out AI-generated stickers. All right. Well, let's talk art, right? Let's talk some Midjourney stuff. I'm excited for this. So as a reminder, drop a question. Michael is already in here saying he's excited for Drew Brucker. So let's bring Drew Brucker on. So Drew Brucker is the VP of Growth at Lasso. Thank you for joining us, Drew. Super excited.
Awesome to be here. Love the show. I think this show is completely necessary, right? Just based on how fast and the velocity in which things are changing. I thought that, that piece that you just brought up around the enterprise stuff, I mean, that is a game changer. So having something like this that you can log into every day and just kind of get caught up and feel like you know what's going on is key.
Oh, absolutely. It's we're here to learn, Harold just said that he put on his learning cap. So thanks, Harold. Actually, Drew physically put on his learning cap, which I should have done today. But thank you to everyone joining us. So Dr. Harvey Castro joining us from Dallas, Woozy Rogers joining us from Kansas City, all the way from Bogota, Colombia. Samuel, thank you for joining us. So as a reminder, if you do have a question about Midjourney, drop it in for Drew. We're going to tackle it. But let's start at the top, Drew. So just tell everyone just real quickly, even just what you do at Lasso. What does it mean to grow at Lasso?
Yeah. So in my full-time job, I'm the VP of Growth. I lead a 5-person marketing team for our company. We are a mature Series A startup in the tech space called a SaaS company, right? Software as a service. And so our ideal customers are live production companies that put on any live event that you can think of, right? Concerts, festivals, corporate events, the people that set up those events pre, during, and post. Those are event companies. Those are the people behind the scenes that don't really, get paid attention to when you attend an event, but they're so crucial in putting on the event and making it successful. And so we help them with scheduling, time tracking, payroll, travel, all of those components to put on a successful show. So that's what I do in my full-time role. And it moves fast, right? We're a fast moving team. And obviously when you're at a startup, every day is a little bit different. So that's what I'm focused on day to day. And then, just on the personal side, I'm a creative by heart. So I'm a photographer, I'm a graphic designer. I love anything aesthetic, right? Which is just this perfect storm of events for me when it comes to Midjourney, because I can apply it both to my professional gig and also my personal life, right? For something like photography, which after you have kids is much harder to actually pull off.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we kind of talked about that pre-show, and I'm a former photographer. You said you have a little bit of that in your background as well. So when Midjourney first came out, I think, we're talking version 1, version 2, it wasn't too exciting for me as a photographer. But what'd you even think, and talk a little bit about your journey in Midjourney, and even what you kind of think of recently, because I think, again, not everyone's following updates, but I think since 5.1, 5.2, the last couple of months, Midjourney is now on the level. It is hard to tell the difference between real photos and Midjourney photos.
Yeah. We were just talking about it before we jumped on here, which was Midjourney went from just this fun kind of tool, right, that you might poke around in and maybe use every once in a while, to all of a sudden being so good in terms of the quality that you can integrate it into your workflow. You can start to use it in real life and use it on a daily basis. And it goes beyond just the fun aspect. It actually has some utility. And so I think that's been key, right? Like as Midjourney has grown, being able to trust that the quality is there to apply it in those circumstances has really been something that's been eye-opening for me. And of course, right, the other thing about Midjourney is, because you can create things other than just realistic images, you can create anything from illustrations to sketches to chalk to any type of medium or style you can think of. The use cases really are infinite. You think of any piece of visual evidence or any imagery, and Midjourney probably has a role in it, whether that's now or in the future. And so I think one thing that I've been thinking about in my role is, hey, in my full-time job, how does this make sense to use, right? Where can I use this instead of things like photography or stock photos? How can I start to replace those things with something that's unique, that has the brand characteristics to it, provides a mood, an aesthetic, a personality, right? Some of those things that stock photography lacks, and photography itself just takes too long and is too expensive to pull off, right? So AI definitely has a lane in that. I think that's what's been super fascinating to me on the professional side. And then personal side, right? We were just talking about it. It's tough, setting aside time to find a location, who you're going to shoot, bring the props, right? Wake up early or go late to a location to get the ideal lighting setup that you want. All of those things are very tough to do. And now you can scratch that itch in an AI format to kind of mirror the look that you're going after.
Yeah. I'm going to go straight hot take here, because this just popped up in my mind. And I think you might have had a LinkedIn post on this, maybe not, or maybe you commented on it, but you mentioned stock photography. And I think that's something all companies, right? So even if you're not in charge of stock photography at your company, you probably see that photo on the blog post or the photo on the old website, and it's like cringy, right? Is stock photography as we know it going to either die or completely change because of Midjourney? What are your thoughts?
I'll be curious to get your thoughts. I think as we know it, it's dead. Now, I think what's happening, right, is they're going to pivot. They're going to make their own move. I think Shutterstock just had something to come out. I saw this briefly, so I don't have the exact details, but something with NVIDIA. They now have this ability to basically take a photo and almost do like a 360 of different angles and so forth. So those create unique visuals in that aspect. It'd be curious to see and interesting to see what route they go down and how far that road takes them, because I think that's an entirely different avenue that we're not really seeing on the Midjourney side. Having said that, right, like going back to what stock photography is, yes, I think it's dead, right? When you don't have to pick the same images as 10 other companies and see the same faces that is not really a happy customer on a business page, why do it, right? Especially when you can recreate unique images that match your brand personality and the characteristic, the things we were just talking about. at exactly the same price point. And look, the reality is stock photography, digging through those things is so painful, right? You only probably have 3 options for the dimensions: square, horizontal, landscape. With Midjourney, you can have any dimension you want.
Yeah.
Right. So that's huge. And then you don't have to go through 30 pages. I can pull keywords that I know want to have. I want yellow lighting. I want to have sort of like this type of style or this kind of mood. This is the distance I want. Some of those things you just can't filter through in something like a Shutterstock. And I'm just blasting Shutterstock for no reason, but you know what I'm saying? Like this provides a whole different element in that capacity. And so the post that you're mentioning is more like a flow chart. And it's like, hey, look, if you're on a tight budget or you have a quick turnaround, you're going to go on this route, right? And maybe this is the better choice. Does it need to be unique? Do you have, any sort of tolerance for imperfections in the image?
Mhm.
Well, then you maybe want to go this route.
For sure. Yeah, and if you're listening to that, I'll make sure to share that in the newsletter. So if you're not signed up, go to youreverydayai.com, sign up now. And yeah, by the way, yeah, it's stock photography is going to die. I think you're going to have those that establish partnerships. Like Shutterstock has partnered with NVIDIA. I believe they've partnered with OpenAI. So you'll have it. Some of the those companies exist still, I believe, but as we know it, I don't think so. As a reminder, we do have other episodes. Brian just with a comment, he said more Midjourney awesome. So yeah, make sure to check the show notes, and I'll drop it in the thread here on LinkedIn as well. So we did have kind of Midjourney for beginners. But even like Harold said, he used Midjourney for his company logo partially. Drew, we have some of your fans joining saying, Jess, thank you. Drew is an ace at Midjourney. Y'all are about to get schooled. And Abby saying, looking forward to hearing from you. So yes, let's school us, Drew. And I'm going to go ahead. If you are joining us live, I'm going to be putting some of Drew's Midjourney creations and some of his tutorials on the screen. But Drew, just walk us through, how can people actually grow their companies, grow their departments, or grow their careers by using Midjourney?
I think it's going to be different for every business, but going back to the use cases, it would be beneficial, right, to think through and start to shortlist, right, all of the different ways that you use visuals in your company, right? So I think naturally, I'm a content person. I started in content. My mind initially goes to things like articles, podcasts, thumbnails, YouTube thumbnails. Go to social media clips. You go to blogs, right? Like live events. All of those things can have a specific look and feel to them and can apply directly to your brand, right? So that's one thing that you might have already paid a designer for, or somebody on your team is a graphic designer and they're spending maybe much more time there than they need to be. I know there are agencies or even bigger teams out there that do have graphic designers on their team and they're still using Midjourney just to expedite the process, right? So whether you're on a big team or a small team, that doesn't matter. The use case is there. Other things that you may think of, internal and external presentations. You need an image. You think of a brand book or a brand library, building out a specific look and feel to all the images that you use. That's something that we've done at Lasso. If you're looking for UX or UI mockups for a new website or an app or anything like that, that can be done in Midjourney. You think about training materials when somebody comes on board, email marketing. One other thing we're doing is website images, campaigns specifically. So we had a customer only event that we did at a trade show recently, came up with the name in ChatGPT, came up with the description in ChatGPT in terms of the brainstorming of, hey, how can we tie this into Lasso and sort of a Wild West cowboy culture lingo and feel? And then we designed all of the assets in Midjourney. So the campaign itself was in Midjourney. We created a lot of swag for that event. That was from the image that we created in Midjourney, right? So like all of those use cases come into life was really cool. And I think that was back in April now, right? So that was even 4 or 5 months ago, which was really a cool time to kind of experience, hey, I created this by myself on here, and here it is in real life. Yeah. So the list goes on and on. I would just think through your individual business. Hey, what are we currently using right now? What is the tech stack we have in place for images, and how can we offset that? Now, I'm not going to lie, like there is a learning curve to Midjourney, right? So you can't just sign up and expect to get great images off the bat. You do need to put in a little bit of the
Mhm.
experimentation, the time, the sweat equity to kind of know what you're doing in there, Jordan. But at the same time, you know this as well as I do. I think the barrier to entry is going to come down a little bit, not only just because of the evolution of AI, but this getting away from Discord. Midjourney has already said that they're building their own UI. And I think Discord, whether you like it or not, right, a lot of people aren't comfortable in there. And so once that happens, I do think there's going to be a little bit more access and a little bit more, I guess, willingness to jump in.
Yeah, 100%. And if you are brand new to Midjourney and you're hearing what Drew is saying, don't worry. We're going to have prior episodes in the show notes and in the comments here, on this LinkedIn thread. We have a couple episodes literally for beginners, going from sign up to all the way, nothing advanced, but some of the basics. And as a reminder, if you are listening on the podcast, we're just flipping through some of Drew's work that he's sharing on LinkedIn. Has some great resources on how to get the most out of Midjourney. But real quick here, a great question from our community here, Leonard, saying, Drew, what are your thoughts on how to get business doing Midjourney work? I think it's a great side hustle. But what's your thoughts on that? And if someone has kind of developed some of these skills, Drew, how would you recommend that they can go, kind of create a little side hustle out of that?
Yeah, I think there are, just like there are the use cases, you go through all of those components. There are just many opportunities to use it as a side hustle, right? So one thing I've done, right, is create sort of a course, a guide, if you will, more of a guide than a course to this point, but really a tactical way for people to get into Midjourney, understand how to use it, right? Here are the different options and levers that you have at your disposal. And then here are all the things that you can think about in order to create a great image, right? It's not just the keywords that you plug in, but hey, maybe shifting the angle of the subject. Maybe you're going for a certain mood or lighting, or you want to, sort of have this look like a particular movie or photographer or artist, right? Like all of the components that go into building a prompt, that's in that course. And so that's one route you could take. You could take the route of building out, like I just was talking about, a brand book for a company.
Yep.
That takes a lot of time normally. And so if somebody doesn't have the skill set to be in Midjourney and create a consistent look over and over again with the images, there's an opportunity, right? You could pitch that. I think there's something to be said about training, companies either one-on-one or one-to-many, in terms of the tool and the use case. And Jordan, like, I think one of the eye openers for me is when I started going down this path and building out the guide, I realized I was kind of in my own echo chamber, and there really aren't a lot of people that have been in Midjourney and are using it very, very consistently, right? There are people that may have jumped in there once or twice, or they've heard about it, but they just haven't jumped in yet. And so there really is a window of opportunity right now to lead the way, to dive in fully and help expedite this for teams, because AI moves fast. And,
Yeah.
Unless you are in the weeds experimenting with it, you're probably not going to get caught up.
Yeah, fully agree. Not just on how fast it moves, but you just have to jump in there and you have to get your hands dirty a little bit, right? And it's and let me tell you this, Midjourney's been around now for, I don't have the exact date, but I think it's been a year and a half. It's been more than a year. And it's much easier now than it used to be, right? Like even in the newest version of Midjourney, 5.2, I think 5.3 is supposed to be coming out any day now. But you can use almost plain English. Whereas, in earlier versions, you almost had to kind of speak AI image prompts. So I think that's really helpful. Couple comments wanted to get to. Marie's, thank you for joining us. Jackie with a question here. So didn't think of website mockups. Can it do full wireframes?
I haven't experimented with full wireframes, but yes, I think you can. It's not something that I've really played around with at that depth. I know you can do, pretty simple UX and UI wireframes, right? So if I want to have like a clean design and I'm looking at a particular page, right, I want it to be a product page or a home page or a contact us page, I think it can at least give you sort of like that hero section and maybe some of that. I'm not sure how it works in terms of the scale of an entire page. I'm sure it's possible. Maybe somebody else knows, but it hasn't been something I've played around with too much.
Yeah. And shout out Jackie. Jackie's doing great things to Paul, trying to get AI into the schools there. But yes, Jackie, kind of like what Drew said, you can in ways it's a little limited. We've experimented with it before. I think we actually shared about it in one of our last newsletters. So you can do partial wireframes, but again, if you want kind of granular control, you're not really going to have that in terms of, oh, I kind of want this size, I want this type of layout, this type of UI UX. But it's a great starting point, and a lot of great people start in Midjourney with an idea and then move over to Figma.
Jordan, wouldn't you say it's more of like a visual jumping off point, right? Because I mean, you can identify, hey, look, I really like the cleanliness or the simplicity of this, or even just the structure of this particular section of the web page or the wireframe. And so I think it can be a really good ideation point, almost like a mood board, if you will, from the creative side.
Yeah, for sure. And then another question we have here. I don't even know if I know the answer to this, Drew. So Brian asking, can you create images with transparent backgrounds?
That's a great question, Brian. I honestly hadn't even thought of that. I have thought of, hey, you can create a plain background and then, right, remove the background in another program. I don't know. Jordan, have you played around with that?
Yes, I've tried it, but kind of like what you said, Drew, I think the best we've ever been able to do is just a plain white background, and then, open it in Canva, Photoshop, any, remove background program.
Brian, I think that could be coming though. If that's, like there are certain things too, and we should probably point this out. Like there are certain things in Midjourney right now that aren't ideal, but I think are going to get solved very soon, right? Like still you've got a little bit of the finger issue. Sometimes you get an extra finger in there, or like one that's growing on top of another. That's gotten much better, but you've also got logos and letters, which I think are going to continue to get better and improve too, right? Which just expand the use cases and almost the professional nature in which these are going to be used too.
Yeah, 100%. That's a great question, Brian. I think we're going to start seeing new features, even if we look at how Midjourney has changed recently, simple things that are very helpful, like the zoom in, the zoom out, being able to do subtle varieties, when you get a new image. I think Midjourney is changing and bringing a lot of new features. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. But Drew, we've gone all over the place. We've gone top to bottom. We've talked about growth. We've taken some great questions. What's your takeaway message for people, whether they are new to learn, or maybe they haven't even gone in Midjourney yet? Maybe they're new, but they're thinking, all right, Drew, you've got me convinced. Aside from following you on LinkedIn and sharing, following a lot of the great tutorials that you share, what's your advice for people that are a little newer and they really just want to grow their company or grow their career with Midjourney? What's the takeaway message?
I would say whether it's you or it's somebody else, invest the time to play around with it. And I do mean play around with it, because there is no better way to learn than actually doing it yourself. This is one of those programs. You could follow other people's prompts. You could get all these tactical advice, but unless you are playing in the program or somebody that is, you're not fully going to understand how much it can be used. So I think one thing is just going through that experimentation and playing around with it. That is going to naturally and organically open your mind to different ways to use it. One of the cool things about it currently being in Discord, right, is when you jump in, you are going to be pushed into what's called the newbie channel. So you can see other people's prompts that are generating at the same time as yours, which I think personally is a great way to learn at the beginning. You're starting to see different words. You're starting to see what's called parameters, right? These dash words, or, AR, right? What does this mean? Let me plug that in mine and see what this does. And so I think, there's definitely power in that. And so if it's not you, it should be somebody else on your team. And I'm talking to anybody that's just an individual contributor, all the way to somebody that's on the C-suite. I just talked to a team of VP of sales, VP of marketing, and C-suite of why this is important and why they should care. And I think the reasons are pretty simple, right? money, time, and compromise in terms of the way that you're getting these images, that alone is worth it. But then when you think about the competitive advantage of AI, the scalability that comes into play, the enhanced creativity and potential virality that you can attract by using these images, it's a no-brainer. So make sure that you're spending the time and energy, whether it's you or somebody else in your team, in this area. It's going to be important, and it's only going to get better from here.
Yeah, absolutely. Drew is not lying to y'all, guys. Like, as a former photographer, designer, small business owner, this Midjourney, I think, is one of the most exciting advancements in internet technology that I've seen in a very long time. Yeah. Including Chat GPT, which I'm a huge fan of. But Midjourney right now, I think, is just so far ahead of other players in the AI image generation space. Like what Drew said, definitely worth checking out. Drew, thank you so much for sharing your insights, intel, strategies to help people grow on Midjourney. Thanks for joining us.
Awesome to be here. And if anybody has any questions after the show, I'm free as well. Jordan, thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, absolutely. As a reminder, go to youreverydayai.com. We went over a lot in today's episode. We're going to be breaking down everything that Drew and I talked that we talked about. Also, we'll have links to some of his work and guides. They're definitely worth checking out. So make sure you go to youreverydayai.com, sign up for that free daily newsletter. And we hope to see you back tomorrow and every day on Everyday AI. Thanks.